Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Ministering Over Fostering. We are very excited to have you today. And as promised, bring you some extra special guests. And so we do have those special guests today. I will not introduce them because I want to hear from them. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So please tell us about yourself and the experience that you've had in this career. And I'll just go ahead and give it to whoever wants to start us off today.
All right. Well, thank you first for having us on. This is definitely something that we talked about in the past, and I'm really excited. So thank you for having Elias and I on. First, my name is Joe. I am 45. I have 3 kids. They're 27, 11, and 8. I have been married for, this is going to be 15 years this year in April, and then 25 years together. In total, I am number one, a family man. Family is first, then, I got to take care of myself, and then everything else comes in after that, right? I am a business owner. I own Empire Mortgage Solutions. I have been in the mortgage industry for 23 years. Empire Mortgage Solutions has been my business for the last 5 years, 5.5 to be exact. And I was lucky enough to find Elias, who is my right hand, who works with me, who you'll hear from right now.
Well, my name is Elias. I'm glad to hear a little bit about Joe. I'm 32, and I have been I'm a loan officer with Empire Mortgage Solutions. I've been working with Joe for about 2 years now. Interestingly enough, prior to working in the mortgage industry, I was a manager for a T-Mobile store, and I was there for almost 10 years. So this is a big change in industry for me. It's been great. I have a 3-year-old and another one on the way. Been married to my beautiful wife for maybe 4 years now. And somebody once said, "How long have you been married?" And I've learned at a young age to say, "Not long enough." So we've been married 4 years. Yeah, I've been doing this for 2 years, and I've been in management for a little over 10 years. I've bounced around from different industries. So I've just been very fortunate and blessed that I was able to meet Joe 2 years ago, because Joe gave me something that I didn't have 10 years ago, which I think we'll probably go more into depth later on. He gave me the key to work-life balance that I didn't have before. And I understand now the importance of it as a family man and, being with your kids and your wife and all that. He gave me the key to learn work-life balance, and what he said is true. He is a family man, and I've lost count how many times he's told me family first, family first. So I'm beyond grateful for that. And I'm beyond grateful to be here with you and Lakeisha today. So I'm looking forward to see what kind of questions you guys have for us today.
Well, Lakeisha and I have had the most wonderful experiences when we've gone. We actually went to sit at your table, Joe, back at an office that you had in Chino. But I do remember us bringing you our portfolio and letting you know what we had as a vision, and we just kind of connected from that moment. Elias, I know you, and I know your story. I know your testimony, where you come from and how you've worked. And so to have you guys here today and to share your wealth of knowledge and wisdom with our audience is such a privilege. So to go into that, can you define your job title and what it is that you do? Because Lakeisha and I work with a lot of young people who have no idea what a realtor does, what mortgage is, what that even looks like. So we would love for you to define that for us and just kind of give us a heads up into what it is that you actually do.
Perfect. So I do home loans, and we work with home buyers and real estate agents. And my goal is to put the financing in place so that way there's no gray areas. The hardest part in what we do is the emotional part, where someone falls in love with the house, where we have to put on the brakes to do all the homework first. And that's where Elias and I come in. The home loan process, there are 4 things to every home loan process, and 3 of them we have control over. The 4th one we do not, and I'll explain. So the first thing is income, right? The income is going to allow us to know how much income we have to qualify you for, right? The second part is going to be the credit. So the better your credit is, the better the rates are, the better the programs are going to be. and the more affordability you get, higher credit scores. Okay, and the third piece of the puzzle is the down payment. So there are programs available. You can save for it. You can ask the seller to pay for some of this stuff. The last piece of the puzzle is the gray area. Which I mean by that is the property has to be move-in ready. The negotiations between the buyer and seller have to go through. It's something that, between buyer and seller, they can just back out for any reason. I don't have control over that, right? The seller has control over that stuff, or the buyer has control over that, but not us. So in the short scheme of things, we're here to navigate you through that complicated process, but make it easy. And by doing so, it's just by doing the homework up first and then knowing how all the other stuff works. And when you're working with someone like us, it's our job to make sure that stuff's black and white.
And I guess if I had to add on to what Joe said is, I'm hoping there's a few sports aficionados watching us today. And the easiest way to do that is, as someone that may not know anything about home buying process, you'll probably be more comfortable with two people during your whole process. One will be your real estate agent and the other one will be your loan officer. So if we have any sports aficionados, you'll know that more than not, 99% of our athletes have an agent. That agent is negotiating, that agent is, you hire them and they are getting your best interest, getting you the best deal, having you sign with the best team, et cetera, et cetera. When you bring that into a real estate aspect of it or a home buying aspect of it, your realtor, your real estate agent is the one submitting offers for you, is the one negotiating for you. He's the one saying, I have a buyer, we want this house, but we want to negotiate this, and that. They are the ones showing you the house. Your responsibility is just to find out if this house meets your needs and fall in love with that. The second person to that, as Joe was mentioning, is us, the loan officers, the brokers, the lenders, and we work hand in hand with your realtor. And what that means is when Joe's talking about doing all the work ahead is before you get to your agent looking for the house, we've already done all the homework to make sure that you're comfortable knowing when you go and you're ready to put an offer, you can take that to the bank because we did our work and we know that you're going to qualify for this. And all you need to do is fall in love with the house and let us take care of it. So the loan officer definitely has the more boring job because we do all the math, we do all the numbers. The realtor definitely has the more fun job, driving you around, taking you from house to house, seeing all these beautiful houses. We just do all the ugly stuff and just, making sure that at the end of the day, you get keys to your home. And that's what it's all about.
I love how you broke that down because a lot of our youth that we come in contact with, they don't know the process of buying a house. And then also you went into detail about the career itself. So they might want to be a realtor or they might want to go into the loan field. So thank you for doing that.
And I could just imagine without you, right, without this boring side of the job, like Elias puts it, really it could just be a fantasy because the real estate agent can go and show me these amazing houses that I can't even afford. And I could just imagine how painful that would be to then come to terms with, I can't even afford that, or, that's a house that I'm not going to be able to pay, or instead of it being a blessing, it becomes a curse, right? I am a Dave Ramsey fan and he says that often about home buying. And so without you to tell me this is the realistic numbers, this is what you can afford, this is what you're going to be comfortable with, now take this to your real estate agent so you can find homes that are in this range. Now it brings me back to reality, and maybe the pain isn't so hard if I don't get a certain house or something because I'm not looking at something major. I don't know if I understood that correctly, but that's kind of what I interpret it as.
100%. You're right on.
And you're right on in the sense that I think, so Joe's been doing this 20 something years. I've only been doing it 2 years. But if there's one takeaway that I've learned from Joe and how he runs his business is we are relationship based with our realtor partners and our clients. And what I mean by that is when we say we work as a team, I mean, we mean it. Everything that we do, our realtors are aware. Everything that our realtors are doing, our buyers are aware. And the reason that's important, part of the ugly job is to have to tell the client, I'm sorry, but that house you love, you don't qualify for. So sometimes we have to break hearts, right? But the importance of relationship base is that when we have our realtor partners or our realtors and we say, hey, and they give us a lead, Joe's motto is we treat them like gold. So when we have our realtor partners and they say, hey, go get pre-approved first, is because we have to have that come to Jesus moment sometimes with people, right? And what I've learned is the reason we do our work up front is because we are not in the business to make a paycheck. We can, and for all the people that, maybe are thinking about this as a career, real estate has a lot of pros and cons, and you can make a lot of money in real estate. And I will say this as a testimony, because I know Joe will never say that, but I think, in my honest opinion, we probably could have made more money, but we didn't, because we're in the interest of our clients, because of our relationship base, right? So sometimes we can tell our client, listen, you do qualify for this house, but you only make this amount, which means every month you're only going to have this amount left. Are you sure you want to do that? And so we don't do a loan just to do a loan. It's all about relationships, so that our clients can trust us in saying, they were in my best interest, and they're going to want to refer more people and do that. But our realtor partners will also know that we're taking care of their customers too. And we're going to get them paid, and we're going to get our customers into the best scenario possible.
I like the sports analogy that you gave. I'll give another one. Our job is kind of like the coach. We deal with a bunch of star players, quarterbacks and running backs, and have to deal with their egos. And I like this side of it, because the one thing that these star egos and stuff don't know, that we're the one person that knows they're going to get paid or not on that side of it, right? We're the paycheck protectors kind of on their end, but we have the best interest for our clients, because we want them to have the best, lowest rates, lowest terms, get the most affordability, get the most bang for their buck, right? So as the coach, we don't get a lot of the glory or anything unless we win, right? But we like to see everybody else win. That gives us the enjoyment on this side of it, right? And I think that's where Elias and I get the most enjoyment, when he says we could have made a lot of money, but it's all about helping people and, helping them financially, where it pays back later on, because they'll send us someone else that we can do a loan for because they trust us, right? So it just kind of full circle, if that makes sense.
I love that, and it stands out for I think Lakeisha and I are both like,
Yeah.
And the reason why it stands out so much to us is because what you're talking about is ethics, right? There's an ethical practice to the work that you're doing, and you could do so much more money by maybe taking advantage of someone or putting someone in a situation where, yeah, they qualify for that, but what type of life are they going to have? What quality of life, more than anything, are they going to have if they're working just for a home? Mm-hmm. And so it speaks volumes to us, because even in social work, there's a standard of care, which is the minimum standard. This is what you can do to provide this minimum standard of care, making sure everyone is taken care of. And then there's this go above and beyond. And Lakeisha and I have always worked in this above and beyond, where, yes, this is the minimum standard, but there's so much more that you can do. And even in the work that we're doing, when we had our interview with County, I remember one of the questions that came up during our interview is, this program sounds very ambitious. And I said, yeah, you're right. It is ambitious. There are a lot of components to this program that we already envision and we're thinking about for the future. But in the foster care world in itself, we're thinking of working at a smaller scale, because we rather fully invest at one child at a time, because this child is going to be an adult one day in this environment. And what type of adult are they going to be if I just provide minimum standard of care to have all of these homes and to have all of this income? Because the more homes and the more kids approved you have, of course, the better income you have. But if I can't provide the same quality service, if I go into this big number, then maybe I'd rather stay in this realm where I'm going above and beyond and make an impact in the life of these kids, where now they can go out and have a better future. So yeah. Ethics portion, it stands out so much for us.
And I was going to say, I feel like in any field, it shows if it's an ethical company, regardless, right? Social work, real estate, it really doesn't matter. You can tell as a customer, a client, who's genuinely looking out for your best interests. So I love how you both broke that down.
So this next question that we're going to jump in, I want to do it as a two-part question. I want people to get to know both of you. Joe, you shared a little bit with us about your story and what brought you here. We're so grateful for that, but I would love for our youth to get to know that where you are hasn't just been given to you. You've both worked really hard. You've gone through some things to get here. First, what is your story? And then what brought you to where you are today?
I'll go a little deeper. It might relate, the foster kids that you have. Growing up, my dad left when I was 8 years old. I didn't see him for a whole year. I didn't know what the hell happened. My new dad moved in 2 weeks later, which is weird, when you think about it. Crazy thing is that guy that moved in 2 weeks later turned out to be one of the biggest influences in my life, my stepdad. He was a business owner, so I saw him wake up early, grind it out. He was a blue collar guy, dirt on his jeans, dirt underneath his fingernails. I was lucky to have a good example to fill a void. I was also the only child too. So, being the only child, I'm stuck in my own thoughts a lot of the times, even today. At 15, I left from Norwalk High School to affluent school in Walnut. It was a little bit of a culture shock for me. Sports has always been big for me. I played football. So coming to Walnut that transition was cool because I was able to fit in, but then it also turned into a little bit more than just fitting in. I ended up having a child at 17, where my football career, I was excited. I thought I was going to play pro. I was pretty good. College knocking on my door, sending me letters, asking me questions. I was like, hey, this is pretty cool, at 18, going into college or having a kid, I thought I can do it all too. But that didn't turn out. I started going to Mount Sac, was a junior college. The day one I showed up, these guys seemed like they were on steroids or something. I was a skinny dude. I was like, there's no way I can do this. I had to work too. So I was kind of going from school to football practice to work. That was the first time that I got a taste of like, wow, this isn't just waking up in the morning and going to school. This is serious. This is business. So I got shell-shocked and I backed out. I let go of my dream of playing football. And then for 2-3 years, kind of went from college to ITT to DeVry. Got 3 different student loans from 3 different colleges that I didn't do anything from, and it's because I had no direction. Nobody told me what to do at 18. I was so lucky enough that I got introduced to sales through Primerica. It was through my mom, which Primerica was kind of like a pyramid scheme, not exactly today, but they recruit and want people. But it gave me a taste of something that I wanted. It gave me a taste of like, oh wow, what? My dad gets up every morning, gets dirty. These guys get up every single day, put a suit on. They work hard as well. And you know what? Maybe I could do that. So at 18, when I was trying to figure out what the hell is going on, my mom got me a job as an iron worker with her friend's husband. I ended up going to wake up 4 in the morning, get there by 6 a.m., and then get yelled at by this foreman, spit in my face, and all kinds of stuff every single day because I had to carry 30-foot long rebar that gave us pinches on our necks. And I was like, this isn't for me. So instead of doing the dirty job, I decided to, hey, let me see what I can do. So from there, somehow I ended up in this sales class. The sales class led me to wanting to go to be in sales. So I got my first job at Sears. And then from Sears, just being able to hustle, I snuck my way into the mortgage industry in 2000. And at the time, 2000, the job market was hot. We were just getting over Y2K. And they hired anybody. So at that time, I took advantage of an opportunity that I had, and I did what most people didn't. I knocked on doors. When people told me no, I kept calling after people said yes, and then they said no, and then they would say yes, and then they would say no. And after a while, I just figured I can do it myself. But I got caught in the corporate world, and that's another story. But I think the importance is from, being 8 years old and lost to having someone that, we hope that we can mentor. And I'm sure that Lakeisha and Myra, that's why you're in the business, is because you want that one person that you can influence. I was just lucky enough to have my stepfather, who is, no longer with us today, but grab onto that. And that's what we're trying to do as well, to help out anybody. When we get a home buyer, at the end of the day, it's helping one another.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Joe, and for being willing to open your heart with us, because one of the things that Lakeisha and I do when we mentor our kids one-on-one is we don't shy away from our story and what has brought us here as well. I think back to me being this 11-year-old girl on my own, and life has just completely shifted for me and my siblings. I think about, like, if someone would have told me or shared their story of their hardship and told me, hey, I made it and you can make it too, I think it would have saved me many, many years of feeling alone in my situation. And so we don't shy away from that. And I do truly appreciate you opening your heart with our kids, because you made it. And here you are, new collection back there. Buying.
The pics and stuff,
You're too funny.
Wow. You said so many good things. What sticks out to me though is the fact that you became a parent at a young age and you kept going. And we see that quite often where people will say, oh, your life was over, you had a kid at a young age. I mean, my mom had me at 16. I had my first child, I was 22. So, there were a lot of late nights still working on my master's degree, still doing certain things, being mom, wife, and, student still. But you're proof that you can still accomplish these goals. And, you have people cheering you along the way as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Elias, we'd love to hear from you. Can you share with us your story and what brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, I don't think my story is as entertaining or exciting as Joe's was, but I
love your story, man. That's the real reason how much I love you guys.
Yeah, well, I think that's what makes Joe and I work well together is he's older than me, but we have a lot in common. So obviously growing up, I'm a product of what they call a broken home. My parents got separated when I was, I don't know, maybe 7, maybe 8, around that ballpark. I was the only son, so I was definitely a mama's boy. I had 3 sisters. I guess the easiest way I can relate is that I think when I was 10, we were living with my mom, and for some reason, paramedics picked her up and she went to the doctor. What I didn't know then that I know now is that from the hospital, she had called my father and said, you have 1 hour to come get the kids because I no longer want them and I no longer have time for them. So you have 1 hour, come pick up the kids. So the way I could relate is, I mean, geez, your birth mother says she doesn't want you anymore. Thank God I had a father who, kind of took us on. So, growing up, we weren't in the best position. We lived in a garage with a twin bed. It was 5 of us, a garage twin bed. My back to school shopping, which is funny now, and I tell my wife about this and she still doesn't believe it, but my back to school shopping was every 2 years at the Goodwill store, and that was a great time for us. As a matter of fact, the funniest thing that I remember is when we would go shoe shopping. Joe has that shoe in the back with the Nike, and it had some of them said Air. Well, my shoes were not Air, mine said Bear, because we bought them at the swap meet. So mine just had big old Bear, so I got made fun of at school, but whatever, I had clothes on my back. To try to keep things short though, is my dad, he's a foreman, he's been in construction all his life. So my dad was just all work and church, because we are really connected to our faith now more than we were back then probably, but we really stand strong by our faith. So at the time my dad was working, and I was probably like 10 years old when he was gone for like months out of the time sometimes in Fresno or whatever, and he would just call me, hey, there's money in the account, make sure you pay this and pay this. And then my older sister, well, she kind of took on the role of mom, and then I had to take on the role of dad, so I had to grow up relatively quick. But I remember growing up, if I ever wanted something, my dad would be like, well, you got to work for it. I can't just give it to you. You got to work for it. And I remember cutting grass, washing cars, because I really wanted a pair of Jordans because everybody at school had them. And I cut grass and everything. And when I finally had the money and I went to the store and I was like, I'm not spending all my money on $100 and something shoes. Like, I worked hard for this. So I did it. So as I got older, however, I am one of those phenomenons where there's people that drop out of school. I dropped out of school twice. Okay. I went to high school, I dropped out. Then I went to continuation school and I dropped out. Then I started working for Starbucks at 16, but I would work for Starbucks a part-time shift, and then I would go work nights with a friend of mine who had an electrical company. And then I would just pick up jobs wherever I could because I had to have, money. I had to be hustling because my dad he just taught me. I love my dad, but my dad and I growing up didn't have a relationship of like, let's go out, let's play catch or whatever. The relationship I did have with my dad, though, that I am so thankful for, is he just taught me to be a man, which I don't know what this world is going to relate to that statement nowadays, but he taught me to be a man, meaning you have to provide, you have to go out there and work. And I remember one time I asked him, hey, Dad, I need gas money for the week. Can I borrow $20? I'll pay you back because I don't have money till I get paid. And he was like, no, I don't have money. And I was like, okay. And then a few seconds later, my older sister comes out and says, hey, can I borrow money? I'm going to go out or whatever. He's like, I think I have $20 in my wallet. So I'm like, well, that's weird. You just told me no, right? But what I didn't know then that I know now is that he was just teaching me to be responsible. And now that I'm older, I realize what it is to, work and have money and do all that. And I went through a phase when I was 18 and I was working many hours and I had my cars. I thought I had everything. I had money from what I thought, right? I was making money. I had my cars and I thought I had made it in life. I had the girls, to be honest, but there was always a void, right? So I started growing up, and what I think helped me out is pretty much all my life, I've surrounded myself with people that are older than me that have breathed life into me. And the three things that I have never forgot that have stuck with me forever is someone once told me, life is not about the hand that you deal, but how you play your cards. In other words, you are not a product of what you were brought up in. You determine what your future is going to be, just like in poker. And I know that because a few friends of mine are still stuck in places where they are. And many, many years ago, a friend of mine told me, he's like, yeah, it's because you forgot where you came from. And I was like, it's not that I forgot where I came from, is I choose not to go back. I remember where I come from because I am where I am now because of the lessons I learned back then, but I don't want to go back to that. I want to be better, Every day that I wake up, and Joe said, he became a father at a young age. I didn't become a father at a young age. I became a father, 3 years ago. I've been married for 4 years, but I know now that every decision I make now is for my family, not so much for me, right? So if I'm hustling or if I want to work, if I want to make money, it's no longer about me. It's now about, what satisfies me is to make sure that my kids have clothes on their back, that they have food on the table, and that I can probably give them a life that I didn't have growing up, and my wife as well, that she has a roof over her head and that she has whatever. And that's why every day, one of the other advices that I have that my pastor actually told me one time, and he told me, and I stick by it every day. He's like, does your problem have a solution? If the answer is yes, why are you worried if your problem has a solution? Does your problem not have a solution? Then why are you worried? There is no solution. So why stress out? And every single day that goes by, I take one day at a time. And I think about that. Okay, what's the problem? Does it have a solution? I'm not going to stress because I know what the solution is. Let's go out and get it. Does it not have a solution? Then why am I going to stress? Because there is no solution. It's just, you move on. And where I'm at now is because I don't know how the square looks to you, but to me, there's a gentleman under me. And where I am now is because someone in these four squares believed in me. I'll go even deeper. People don't know this, but the way I met Joe is he did my first home loan. When I bought my first house, he did my loan, and I was working with him for, I don't know, 2 years maybe, because I couldn't get approved, and he was with me every step of the way. So when I finally bought my house, a week later, he called me and said, I want you to come work for me. And I said, no. I was like, no. But he was persistent and he was at it. And when I found out my wife was pregnant, I called him and I was like, hey, man, is that offer still on the table? And Joe has done more for me, I think, than in 3 years that I've known him, than I think a lot of people have done, because of the belief that he has in me. And all that is a product. I mentioned that to say that when you have a goal, you say, hey, I want to get somewhere. I want to be successful. I don't want to be a product of my upbringing. When you say, hey, I want to do this, the important thing is to surround yourself with people that are like-minded, that are going to help you get there. And when I knew I was going to be a father, and I had people in my corner, and I have someone there that says, look, I've been in the business 20-some years, I'm successful, and I have family time. I'm a family man, I'm this. And someone that believes in you and invests a lot in you, money, time, effort, whatever, like, you have to pay it forward. You have to pay it forward and realize that if there's people out there that believe in you, then you should believe in yourself to know that you can get it done as well. But my thing is, what I've learned, to cut my long-winded answer, is yes, you may have been dealt a bad hand compared to other people, but if you really stop and think about it, there's a big number of people that are successful that come from bad backgrounds. They've just kind of taken the next step and say, I will not be defined by where I come from. I'm going to be defined by where I want to go. And I will speak freely and say this about my Hispanic community. My Hispanic community believes this, that I am a product of this. I am a product of this. Therefore, because this is how I was raised, the overall consensus is that I have to keep living this way, and that's not necessarily true. That you were raised a certain way because that was the season that your family was in, but you have a choice to be better. It's just up to you to decide if you want to be better or not.
I just thank you both for sharing your story, because I personally can relate to a couple of things that both of you said. Like, my father, I wasn't raised with a father in the household. My grandfather was the closest thing to a father that I had. And I remember when I did find out about my father, he made himself very glorified, oh, I'll do anything for you. And I remember till this day, he wrote me $100 check to help my single mom with clothes for my school shopping. So when I took that to the bank, guess what? It bounced. And I could have sat there and I could have been very angry at the situation, but I saw my mom struggling to provide clothing for me for my senior year. And I walked to KFC and got a job that day, because I was determined that I wasn't going to let this situation define my future. And so just again, thank you for sharing your stories, because this is what a lot of these kids need. They need us to speak life into them and have a positive environment. And we have seen so many success stories where we just change the environment for some of our youth, speak life, and they have done tremendous things, and they will continue to do tremendous things in their life.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave the suspension going here for the people that don't know. I am the older sister that Elias was alluding to in his story. And so I know firsthand.
Cannot confirm or deny.
So I know firsthand his journey and where he's been. And then Joe came into his life, I think, at the perfect time. And I don't think this episode was meant to make you cry, Joe, but it might. But I think you walked in just at the right time, and to see you now, you're part of our family, and we absolutely love and respect you and who you are as a person. But to see the both of you here today, and to see where you are and how much you've overcome to make such a difference in this world by what you do, because you are making a difference in this world by helping people who maybe somebody else was unable to help, or maybe you are that voice that comes in and says, hey, someone else is going to say yes, but I'm recommending that this be a no. Maybe this season is not the right season for you. And that takes a lot of strength to do that, to be that person that someone can say, they loved me enough to guide me this way. And I think Lakeisha and I, our partnership, the reason why we got put together is because we do also have a lot of similarities in our stories. And we just had a Q&A. We were just talking about that in that episode, right? Where you can breathe life into the life of someone else. Our tongues are so powerful where we can tear somebody down with what we say, or we can breathe life into them and say, you may not believe this potential about yourself right now, but I'm believing this potential in you, and I'm going to walk with you until you believe it yourself. And I think Lakeisha and I have had the honor and privilege of sitting side by side with some of these youth where we already see their potential, even if they don't believe it, but we're willing to walk by them until they believe what we see. And so it takes a very special type of people to do that. Well, the next question kind of walks into this career path a little bit. And what is maybe one challenge that you guys have faced, and how have you overcome that challenge?
I think we can go with something that you always are going to have a challenge no matter where you are in life, right? We just so happen to have a bad market, and so many people to say that, but it's a good and bad market in every market, and it's a good and bad season in every season, which Elias alluded to earlier. And what I mean by that is that it's a great time for some people that can buy right now because they didn't have a chance to buy a year ago, right? And also the seasons, like you could be going through something in life, like my dad passing away, or even in marriage, it's for 24 years, it's not smooth sailing all the time, right? So it's those cards that were dealt and what you're going to do with them, right? You're not going to win every single hand. You're probably going to lose more than you win. And it's the fact that just knowing to keep going, and don't give up. And my mom instilled that in my head throughout my entire life as a kid. Just don't give up. She even texted to me yesterday. I was having a bad day and I was telling her things are tough. And the first thing that she texted me, don't give up. And that's the message that I have. Just don't give up.
You know, for 10 plus years, I worked at a warehouse. I worked at, as a manager, and I knew that no matter what happened, every 2 weeks I was going to get a paycheck. And then the biggest challenge, I think, actually, there's probably two challenges. The biggest challenge that I think is, one, is it's a whole different landscape. Now you're self-employed. So now it's like, in layman's terms, if you don't close a loan, you don't eat, right? Because you don't have a guaranteed check every 2 weeks. So it's taught me the importance of budgeting. It's taught me the importance of saving. It's taught me the importance of not having unnecessary debt. I'll speak for myself. When in this industry, I've always been a confident person in my abilities. But in this industry, I've had to be honest that, being completely transparent with you guys, one of the other challenges that I've had is that I've lost some confidence in my own abilities to say, like, can I really do this or not? Because like Joe said, when I came into the market, it was hot. I mean, we were laughing because when I first came into the market, Joe and I were at lunch, and we were in our office, and he had his feet up on the desk, and he was just catching up on sports. We got a lead, and we started laughing because we're like, man, we're not even doing anything and we're getting leads, right? So it was hot. Now fast forward, now it's like Joe said, I have to do things now that I didn't have to do in 20 something years, because now it's like we have to go and get it, right? But the reason I say I had lost a little confidence in myself is because when I first came into work with Joe, and he was on me about, hey, go get licensed, and I lagged it. I didn't, because of my confidence level, that I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to pass the national test, because I was hearing people how hard it was and I didn't do it. So for, what was it, 2 years, right, Joe? I think it was like for a year and a half or so. I
really started on that.
Yeah, I passed now. I passed now, but for the longest time, I was like, okay, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it. Until finally, I think it was early last year in December of 2021, I was like, fine, I'll go. So I went to go take my real estate test. I passed it on the first try. And then I got licensed for real estate in December. And then I was feeling confident and I was like, all right, I'll go take my NMLS test. So I failed on the first try. This was like in January. So I was like, man. So I had to wait till March. I did it again and I was already depressed. So I went to go take the test and I passed it on my second try. And then in March of 2022, I finally got licensed and I had an epiphany. I was like, man, it was like, had I just done it back then, things would have been a whole, but that's why I'm saying the biggest challenge for me has been one, adjusting to financials, and two, has been dealing with myself as far as confidence, as far as like, can I really get this done? Can I really do this or not? Because I used to be extremely confident when it came to work and knowledge, but going into a whole different industry, I'm asking a lot of questions, and you have to understand that my old job, people were calling me for answers. Like they were like, hey, what should we do here? What do you think about this? What do you like? People that I've admired, like they were calling me and venting or telling me. And now I'm like probably every minute of every hour, hey Joe, man, like what do you think here? And it's been an adjustment. So those are the two things that I would highlight about my challenge in this career.
I think I'm over here laughing because Myra and myself just had this conversation about just confidence and how, no, not about you, but just about confidence and being stripped from what we think is valid. And I mean, because I was a supervisor in social work, and most of my family, a lot of them are entrepreneurs, so I know it's very rough to start your own business. My husband owns his own business, so I've seen it, but to actually put yourself in this position, and then you're constantly asking like, gosh, okay, I know I can do this. I've done it before, but am I really worthy to wear this title? Am I capable to lead this company? And we've had our ups and downs, and then suddenly something happens, and I really feel like it's from the Lord, where he's like, hey, guess what? I just sent this to you. You just completed this mission. Yes, fix your crown and move on. So I love hearing that other people are experiencing this and overcoming it.
Yeah, the negativity can drown out all the positive, but you got to take all those little wins and add them all up, because for whatever reason, negative, it's just loud.
Yes.
And Lakeisha and I were talking about how when you take on a feat like this, like what we did, right, to say, we're going to do this, we're going to go out on our own, we're going to jump out and open this business, and we're going to do it differently. And then you it puts you in front of a mirror, and it brings up all of the insecurities that you didn't even know you had or thought you had already gone over. And it's in those moments where you have to remind yourself, like, no, I should be here. I want to be here, and I'm going to be okay. But it's so funny to hear you guys say that, because we literally just talked about that the other day. And so we're glad to hear we're not the only ones on that boat.
No, I've had to struggle with that, and because I'm real close to my faith, in my prayers, I've like said, like, I need confidence. And it's funny because the verse that keeps playing in my head over and over, it's in Matthew 6. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added onto you, So when my confidence is just like low, like all I can say is, look, I just got to keep trusting you. I just got to keep looking after your righteousness, and all these things are going to be, it's not my business, it's Joe's business, but I know that in my prayers, I pray for Joe and I pray for the business, because he's leading us. He's leading the charge, so I don't envy you as business owners. I know I'm self-employed, but I don't envy you.
We do want people to know that we're going to be preparing a workshop pretty soon, and you both will be joining us for that. And so you're going to be bringing a lot of information on credit score and what it is to prepare to buy a home and all that stuff. And that's going to go really into depth with that. So I'll open it if you guys want to share a little bit about the credit score, if there's something really daunting that you guys think we can throw out here, and then we'll jump into our final question for the day.
Yeah, credit scores are tricky. And the reason why I say that is because nobody teaches anyone to budget in school. And you get out of school, you get a job, you get a credit card, you're like, woohoo, what's this? You use it, then you're like, oh, now I have something that I have to keep track of, a payment. Guess what? You get another one. You get 10 of them. Well, now you have 10 problems, meaning 10 payments you have to track, and it just adds up to that another thing you have to remember. All these things add up. So that, as far as the credit, you want to use what you need, meaning it's always nice to have a home, an auto loan, and one credit card. Okay, you don't need 10, one in case of emergency, and keep it simple. When you have 3 different items like that on your credit report, your credit scores are going to generate the maximum they could, because you have different trade lines and you have proof that you've been paying these payments. Then the second part of that is the longevity. The longer that you have credit and you're making on-time payments, the better your credit scores are going to be. There are so many technicalities, but those are the simple ones. And the last thing I'll leave you with, you don't ever want to use more than 50% of the maximum balance, because once you use 50% of the maximum balance on a credit card, it starts dinging your credit. So keep it simple. Try to have 3 accounts, or if you don't have a house, many people are going to have a auto loan, credit card, and a student loan. Those are decent things to build credit, right? But I recommend that everybody gets a credit card initially, but get one that has rewards or something like that is going to give back to you, because I'm the type of person that pays a credit card off every single month, and that money is free money. I don't pay any interest, but I get free money back on the gas or all that stuff. So use your credit wisely, don't overdo it, and just keep it simple.
Yeah, Joe hit it on the nail, right? And I was younger, I wish they would have taught me about credit, interest rates, and all that in school, but you learn from all that. And the easiest thing to remember is, I guess your credit, you can view it as your report card. The better you take care of in school, right? The more you do the work, your homework, and you do all that stuff, you're going to have a better score, a better report card. Your credit is very similar. The biggest thing is be responsible with it. It's when you're 18, it's great because you can go and give you a credit card, and people are willing to give you a $200 spending limit on a 30% annual percentage rate, which later on we might teach eventually. But guess what? Those $300 are not yours. You have to pay it back. So people are like, oh, I got free money. No, you're paying it back and then some on top of that. So be responsible with your credit score. Always remember that the better you can take care of your score, the better opportunities you're going to have with interest rates and car payments and house payments, and better opportunities you're going to have. The other thing that people may or may not know is, and I know Lakeisha might have mentioned this early in the conversation, is you are entitled every year for a free credit report. It might not have the score, but it's going to tell you what's reporting on your credit. So if you didn't know that, is every year you can go to, I think it's freecreditreport.com, and you request what's a credit report. They'll mail it to you, and this is how you can be responsible, right? You track what's reporting on my credit. You may not even know that there's a bad account on their reporting, and then you can look at it and say, this isn't mine, and then you can call and fix it so that it doesn't affect you. You can keep track of all that stuff, or something that was supposed to be paid off that is still showing, then you can research that. So that's a little bit of work that you can do, but in the long run, it's going to benefit you greatly if you can keep track of that stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for those tidbits. But to finalize today's interview, we have one final question, and we're just so grateful for all of the knowledge that you both have just shared. You've already provided, I think, our youth with a lot of life advice, and you did that just by sharing your stories. And so we're grateful for that. But we do have a lot of transitional youth that are currently renting or dorming, and they are starting to kind of get their lives together and are thinking about what comes next. Maybe when is the right time to start buying a house? Am I ready to buy a house? Or should I wait? Should I keep renting for a long time? What is that next step? There again, we're looking at guidance and how that works for them. So to finalize today, what is some very brief advice that you can provide our young people that are going to be listening to this episode on how to better prepare or what to look out for as they start to think about buying a first home?
The home buying process is not something that you see quickly in 90 seconds on TikTok or Instagram. It takes something that time, planning, and a professional, we like to see ourselves a little bit differently because, we're business owners, but we're professionals that we get to work with a number of different lenders because we've taken the necessary steps to be licensed and do more, right? So talking to the right person and planning is priority. And whether you think you can do it now or not, it doesn't matter. It's about talking to someone like us just to say, hey, if you want to do this, these are the next steps that you're going to do. It could be, get a raise. I mean, we've had that conversation. We've helped people get raises because they haven't thought about applying for a new job in 5 years. They applied for a new job and guess what? They got a raise, Things like that happen, and that happens because they talk to someone like us. Simple.
The biggest step in the home buying process is deciding that you want to be a homeowner. When you realize that home ownership is not necessarily a curse. It's actually a way to build wealth if you can do it responsibly. A lot of these people that are real estate investors or what have you, and now they have multiple rental properties and wake up at whatever time they want now because they're making income from the rental properties. Well, they started with one home. And I think having a home is an investment and all that. But the biggest step you can make, if that's you saying, I'd like to own my own house, or, I'm working now, what can I do? The biggest step you can take is deciding you want to buy a house. The second thing you do to kind of underscore what Joe said is you want to talk to someone that's going to guide you, that's going to put you in the right position. I'm not going to lie to you. You will encounter rejection because there will be people out there that will not give you a second look if you are not ready to buy a house. It's just in every industry, things like this happen. What separates us, and I'm not trying to boast about us, but what separates us is as we speak, we have had clients that we have been working with for 2-3 years that still can't buy a house, but we're with them every step of the way, And what I mean by that is you already decided you want to buy a house, you talk to a professional, and we put a game plan together, and we're going to guide you and we're going to counsel you and say, this is where you are and this is where you need to be. A perfect example is, I'll speak about my wife. My wife, for the longest time, she has 2 bachelors and she was not getting paid for 2 bachelors. So after talking to her, Joe talked to her when we were first married. I talked to her when we got married and we were dating. Well, guess what? My wife got to the point where she applied, she got another job where they doubled her salary, and now she's getting paid, and now she works for a school district in the HR department, and she's some type of management consideration. So now she's making double the money, all because we had to realize, like, hey, you have value, you have worth, and you should get paid for it, right? So that's where we come in. Let's put a game plan together and help you get to that goal. And I always tell people, some situations take a month, some situations take 6 months, some situations take a year. But if you have the patience and you have the willingness to work, we have the patience to get you there. We just have to kind of put it all together and give you a scope of what it is. And anybody can own a home. We just have to get you there.
I'm thinking about some of our young adults, right? Before they even get themselves into some type of hardship, they're already knowing what they need to do to prepare for home ownership at some point.
At the end of the episode, we'll have access to all of Joe and Elias's information so that if any potential resource parents are looking to buy a bigger home, or they need to refinance, or they're wanting to take another look at what they're paying and to see if they want an evaluation of where they're at, they can go ahead and reach out to Elias and Joe. Or if any of our youth are already thinking of preparing to buy a home in the near future, that they can reach out to Elias and Joe and sit with them and say, this is everything I have. What does this look like for me? Can you help me create a plan so that when I'm ready, it just all goes through? And they may be the better people to assist you guys with those types of questions. Joe and Elias, thank you so much for today's interview. I think we laughed, we cried a little bit, we went through all of the emotions all in one interview. But I'll leave it open for a few seconds for everybody here if there's any final words on my behalf. I'm so grateful that we were able to do this. And Lakeisha and I are looking forward to all of the other ways that we're going to be able to work together to merge these two businesses together, where you are working ethically. And we know that if we send anyone your way, that they're going to be very well taken care of. Our kids are going to be taken care of through your hands the way they would if they were with us. And we're grateful for all of the opportunities that are going to come. Lakeisha, what are your final thoughts for them?
Yeah, I just thank you for just sharing your business. Again, as Myra had just stated, that it's an ethical business, as well as your story being completely just transparent when you were your childhood all the way to where you are now. I thank you because I know that there will be a lot of our teens and young adults listening. And I can think of a couple in my head right now that this is going to just change their whole outlook.
Any last minute words, Joe or Elias?
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you as individuals and everything that you guys are doing. I mean, how can we not support you guys?
Yeah, well, thank you guys for taking the time and inviting us. I've said it many times, it takes special people to do what you guys do. So you guys keep it up and know that there's a purpose for everything, and we're here to help. If there's somebody that's watching and is maybe thinking about this career, I don't consider myself to be a mentor, but I'm, we're here for you. I don't think Joe and I feel threatened by getting more people. There's plenty of business for everyone, and we want to just help you all to be better at whatever you want to do. So if you want to reach out and you have some questions about the business or some doubts, we're here to help you and guide you, mentor you in any way that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode. We appreciate you all and look forward to the next one. Bye.
Bye.